Welcome to The Leaders Who Care, a podcast powered by Dynamis Group. We are here to give the stage and support to those committed to create a positive and lasting impact, way beyond the profits and margins, the leaders of the world who care for others and serve a bigger purpose. Join us on the journey of creating a better, more caring world. And now to your host, Marian Temelkov.
Hello, everyone. I'm super excited to welcome a very special guest today, a double Paralympic gold medalist and a leader, a true leader who cares, with a profound impact on the future generations and upcoming female leaders. Danielle Brown, welcome. I'm so happy that you can make it today.
Thank you. It's been awesome to be invited.
Danielle, I heard so much about you, and I really wanted to kind of invite you and hear your story. It's so much that I'm curious and interested about, and my son always is curious, and he loves gold medals. So I'm sure a lot of children would love to hear, what does it take? How do you become a gold medalist first? But before you get us to the gold medal, why don't you tell us your story, who you are, Danielle, where you come from, your journey. We'll be very curious to hear that.
Sure. So I was born in the north of England, a beautiful place called Yorkshire, and I just had the most wonderful upbringing. My family were into outdoors. So, every weekend and evening, we'd always be doing sport, which I absolutely loved. But at the age of 11, my feet started to hurt after I'd been running, and the pain began to get worse and worse. So at 13, it was really affecting me. I was struggling to walk. I couldn't run around. It was very, very tough. And at that time, that's an age of your life where you're figuring out who you are, you're figuring out what you want to do with the rest of your life. So it was very, very tough. And I lived in fear. I worried that people wouldn't be able to see me as a person and the value that lay within. And all they'd see was the crutches, the wheelchair, the disability. So I did find that very, very tough. But sport turned my life around. I started archery on my 15th birthday. I was rubbish to start with, but it was just so much fun. I was outside, I was taking part in sport. 3 years later, I'm on the Great Britain team. I jump in as world number 1 and hang on to that position for my entire career. So, yeah.
Amazing. Wow. I'm sure it's not that as straightforward as that, hanging on to that. But tell us, what did it seems like from early upbringing, you love to be outside. So how important was the early childhood experience for you, that later on impacted you in your choices?
Hugely, hugely important. I am very, very fortunate to have brilliant parents who gave me all the right messages. So, my mom and dad always told me that there was no such thing as can't. And in fact, they wouldn't let me use that word. So every time I shouted, I can't do this, I get told off and told, can't doesn't exist. And I remember, I don't know if you guys had to do it, play the recorder at school, that horrible, horrible instrument. And I hated it so much. And I just remember stamping my foot one day and I threw the recorder across the lounge. I shouted, I can't do this. And my mum picked it up and said, come on, no such thing as can't. We'll both learn how to play. And I got there, if you consider playing a tuneless rendition of Little Donkey at the school Christmas play a success. But, I still did it. I still gave it a stab. I still tried it. And I think that upbringing, that whole mentality around no such thing as can't has influenced me so much and continues to today. So every time, you face the challenge, it's still in the back of your head that there's no such thing as can't. How do I get around this?
I love it. And tell us, you mentioned something very important. My parents taught me the right messages. You shared one of them, can't. There's no such thing as can't. I think it's an attitude really that you learn and that helped you a lot. What else was made a profound impact that you remember from your parents?
maximum effort. Mom and dad, this is long before this whole research behind growth mindset came out, but they would always say they'd never be disappointed, win or lose, as long as I'd given it my absolute best. And if I could come away and hand on heart say I couldn't have tried any harder, then they couldn't ask for any more. So I think that was really helpful, because it just sort of encouraged me to go out there and try and fail and learn, and next time I get a little bit better. So yeah.
Wow. Well, this is very helpful, not just for children, but also for parents, that are listening to us. And this is so important. What about how did it all, tell us more from the 15 years old when you start the archery to becoming a gold medalist?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I got quite obsessive with archery, which is probably how I ended up getting quite good at it. But when I was training, when I was shooting, it really helped me with my disability. So my disability causes chronic pain in both my feet all the time. It's a neurological condition called complex regional pain syndrome. And it was tough. Living in pain isn't easy, but having this out, being able to, at the end of the day, if I got through school, I could go and do my archery practice. It just gave me something to look forward to. And when I was doing it, I wasn't concentrating on the pain I was in. Then when I started going to competitions and you get that adrenaline rush, the pain's still there, obviously, but it's even further removed from your thoughts. So yeah, I guess I was training a lot, I was practicing a lot, and I loved it. And again, I was very fortunate at the club that I was at. I had some fantastic coaches, they're great role models, really supported me. And I think having, at the age of 15, having that adult influence, as well as my parents, who weren't my parents. So I could sort of ask them questions that I didn't feel perhaps, I could ask my parents. I had that amazing support bubble around me. I think that really, really helped me grow as a person as well. So yeah, there I am, sort of scores kept improving. I made the GB team and off we went from there. It was just a case of getting that support then from the coaches. I was learning more. I was getting access to more competitions. I was growing both as an athlete and a person, and it was just amazing.
You're touching on another, it sounds like what a great journey that you had, a great parents, now going to great coaches. What is it, in your definition, what was great about your coaches? What are the things that really you felt similar to what we talked about your parents, that the key messages they sent to you? What did you really like about your coaches?
I think that the fact they saw something in me. So as I said, I was rubbish when I picked up a bow for the first time. Like, I was spraying the arrows everywhere. It was a miracle if I actually hit the target. But they said that they saw something in me. They saw that potential, and I didn't really get it. I guess I was quite naive, and I was like, oh, they must see something. That's really cool. So I guess it gave me that encouragement and that confidence to keep going and not setting myself any limits. It was just a case of that they hadn't set me any limits, so I could go and achieve whatever I wanted to with that.
Wow. I can imagine. Can you describe what was the feeling, how, when you won your first gold medal, and of course, how long of preparation did it take? Just so that if anyone's listening, that the younger future generation, they actually understand what does it take to become a gold medalist, apart from saying having good parents, good coaches that will help a lot in that. But you said something in love with what you do, obsessive, you said, about the sport in a way. But yeah, it would be nice to kind of get your perspective on that, because you've done it.
Sure. And obviously, I guess sort of success in any field requires hard work. It doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen by accident. If you want to be good at anything, you've got to work for it. And I did work very hard with my archery. I was training a lot. I was shooting a lot of arrows. But
how many hours? How were you training?
Oh, crikey. So when I was at school, it was a case of I would be shooting 5-6 days a week after school. and I'd be going maybe to our club 3 times a week. And then my mum and dad were very, very understanding and put a target in our lounge. So I would shoot some very short distances in the lounge just to practice my technique, which was very interesting. Mum and dad were watching the TV and these arrows were going past.
Okay, well, love it. It's consistency, what you're saying, every single day, and being surrounded with obviously the right environment that helped you a lot. And Danielle, we have a question that from Steon that was really interested in. I wanted to know, you love your energy, you're an inspiration. What do you do to remain positive and mentally strong when you're going through adversity?
Sure. So I think, first of all, it's recognizing that adversity happens to everybody. I think that sometimes when we face a challenge or a setback, we can take it quite personally because it feels rubbish. It's not in the game plan. And, I guess it's that approach to change. If you've got an idea in your head, you're working something and you get that setback, it is quite hard. But I think for me, it's recognizing that on that path to success, we're always going to hit setbacks. We're always going to hit challenges. And sort of understanding it from that premise, I think, makes it a bit easier when it happens. But I guess I've always been positive. I've always tried to focus on actions. So when something goes wrong, right, what can I do now? And actually look at the actual steps you can take. And of course, when things do go wrong, as I said, it does affect that mental state, that emotional state. So if you're struggling to stay positive, tap into that support network around you. They might be able to give you advice on those actions you can take and see something that you can't. But also that emotional support, I think, is very, very important. So whether it's the encouragement or sometimes a kick up the backside if you need it, I find that really, really helpful.
Wow. Yeah, indeed. I can relate a lot to that. Personally, also being naturally positive, but also when I know sometimes it's not easy. We all have obviously difficult and adversity and moments, but taking an immediate action helps a lot to elevate that and make a difference. What about, Danielle, what do you do now? What do you do today? What's your kind of, how does your day look like? Do you actively train? What is your activity today?
So I am out of sport. I retired a while ago. I run a number of projects. So I set my own business up when I retired. So I do speaking, training. I'm really passionate about working with young people. So, for me, the support that I received really, really helped me and helped shape the direction that my life went. So being able to have an influence there for me is very, very important. So I do that through speaking and writing books and things like that, which is just really, really fun. But yeah, I like helping people through the strategies I learned through sport. So I do a lot around that confidence side of things. I work with women, I work with leaders, and look at what they can do to improve their situation, but also, I guess, make slightly more inclusive cultures as well.
I love it, especially in these times. We are kind of being in unprecedented times of challenging, obviously, our mental, staying positive, our mental state, and physical state as well. And I think what you've learned and you're sharing through sport is a great, really great value to be spread around, to do more, and building that confidence that young people need. What would you say are when you look at what you've done and all the challenges you've gone through, would you say that care has played a role in your success?
Yes, absolutely. And I think I find that question fascinating because I've obviously and already shared stories about the most amazing, caring support team that really helped me. Also through sport, I experienced times where that care wasn't there, and actually how negative that was. The training environment in many ways was a very toxic environment.
Yeah.
And that was very, very hard, actually. So I dealt with that by building a team of people around me. So I built my own support team. I had my own coach. I had my own team that I chose to work with, who gave me that support I needed. And my coach, again, was a very, very caring person. And for me, I actually thought that relationship was one of the most important aspects. He could look at me and he knew whether I was having a good day or a bad day. He didn't even need to ask me. And he knew exactly what he needed to say to me to either pick me up or to help me continue going. Whereas, if you're having a really bad day, the last thing you want is somebody asking about why it's going so bad and what they can do to help. So, for me, even in that very toxic environment, I was still looking for care, for kindness. And again, in the business world, that really surprised me when I left sport, when I set up my first business. I imagined the environment would be very, very much like that toxic sport environment, and it wasn't. And, when you're coming up, meeting people, it's all about networking and synergy and collaboration. It was just a really nice environment to be in.
Amazing. Well, thank you for sharing that. We have another great question here that relates very deeply to my heart here, since in Dynamis, that's what we are passionate about. And we have Ellie here. Thank you, Ellie, for your question. How and where did you find the right people for the team? It's such an important, when you build anything, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a really interesting question, because I think sometimes when we look at our support network, we tend to just look at that network and see who we've already got in it. But what I did was, once I knew what my goals were, I'd look at my team and think, are they the right people? Are they giving me the right thing? And that wasn't just in terms of the right information, it was the right energy. So my personal coach, he was a level 2 coach. He'd not got the national qualifications, but actually the people with the national qualifications didn't have the right energy, and that they weren't working with me in the right kind of way, or the way that I needed to thrive. So for me, it was about finding people that I could build that. And it was also about identifying the gaps as well. And I think that looking at it, in order for me to get to my goal, actually, I need somebody in this area that can really help me. I'm not an expert in that. Who can fill that gap, and trying to sort of actively build that network in that way, I found was really, really helpful.
I love what you said. And what we'd also do as well, just to share some of our experience in Dynamis, is we look at obviously opportunities where when you look at a team, we look at what is your superpower, basically. In other words, can you be one of the best you can be, or the best in the world? And you said something very smart and interesting here. Link that with the goal you want to achieve. So once you know what you want, that's greatly valuable. Then look at and honestly say, hey, this is what I have, and this is what I don't have. This is what I can be the best. And then just go and find out. And of course, the final element is make sure that they're the right people in terms of energy, values that can support you throughout. Amazing. Wow. Well, how do you care about yourself, Danielle? That's with the team was one way, but can you share a little bit about how is your day look like? To stay positive, to be in that kind of. How do you take personal care, rather? What are the things that you may do, like rituals or habits that you may have that keep you through in a good emotional state, especially emotional state?
Yeah, super. So actually building rest into not always my day, but definitely my week. And I learned to do that in actually 2010. So that year I qualified for the Commonwealth Games as an able-bodied competitor. But I was also on the Paralympic team, so I was on two 2 teams, and I was out of the country every fortnight. I was training, and it was just exhausting. And to be honest, when I got on the plane for the Commonwealth Games, I was on burnout. And for me, that gave me like a real realization that actually how important looking after myself was. So for me, getting that physical bit is the foundation. Make sure you've got that rest built in, making sure you're eating the right things, feeding yourself the right fuel. Even out of sport, I think it's really important. And once you get that foundation bit right, then it's about wrapping around all the other bits sort of from that well-being. I think it's always really important to look at your day, your week, how it's going, and giving yourself that positive side of things. So I like to do to-do lists. So at the beginning of the week, and the beginning of the day, I always do to-do lists. And I like that because I can tick it off as I go through, which is...
It gives you that satisfaction when you make the tick, right? And like you've done it.
Exactly. And you can also track it as well, which, because I think a lot of the time when we're pursuing a goal, you're so focused on what's coming up and what's ahead that you forget to look at where you've been and what you've done. So yeah, I like that in terms of giving myself that positive boost. So that's sort of one of the habits I tend to use.
Amazing. And we have another great one here alongside that, really the habits that you do about recharging. So there's also, what do you do to recharge and unplug of working from home in that global pandemic? What are your strategies today about that?
So I think it's about finding something that you enjoy doing. And obviously it is very, very tough at the minute because we are inside, and I don't know, I think everyone must be getting bored of staring at the same 4 walls. It is really, really tough, isn't it? So for me, it's just finding something that takes my mind off what I'm doing. And I like to write. So, I love reading, and I can escape into books, which is brilliant. But I've been doing a lot of writing as well, which just takes my mind somewhere else. So even though I'm like still confined in the same 4 walls, my mind is elsewhere, and I don't tend to notice it as much. Great.
Excellent. So really the secret is finding those things that recharge you, and it's up to us really to find what are those things. Whether it's reading book, going for a walk, or talking to friends, surely that makes a great difference. What about moving forward, Daniele? And you're doing a lot of great projects. You're an inspiration, but what excites you at this moment in time? What is your what gives you this motivation and excitement for the future?
All right. So yeah, just I think having that purpose and a purpose that you're really passionate about is important, because that gives you the motivation to keep going. And for me, really, it is all about helping other people. Yeah. I love being able to make a difference that way. And when you get some really positive feedback about how it's changed somebody's outlook on life, or it's really got them through a tough day, it makes it just so worthwhile. So knowing that you're going out there and you are making that difference, for me, really does drive me forwards.
Great. Well, it's been really a very important to see that how we need to stay well, because if we don't, then we can't really make a positive difference in that sense. So it's starting from ourselves. And what would you say was the biggest challenges you had to overcome, or roadblocks? In other words, was there a time or when your care was put to the test, even in that situations?
Yeah, so my biggest challenge was actually at the end of my sports career. My retirement from sport wasn't my choice. I declassified out of Paralympic sport through a rule change. So the International Paralympic Committee decided that my disability was no longer eligible for the Paralympics. So anybody with my condition can no longer compete.
Okay.
So yeah, that was a huge challenge. This was my career, but it was obviously one that I was so passionate about. You know, I put everything into it, and overnight that was it. I'd lost everything, my career, it was my income, everything, and that was really tough. I went through a complete identity crisis because, I'm a little athlete than I wasn't. I'm a person with a disability, but my disability wasn't enough. So yeah, it was really, really tough. And I suppose in terms of that care side of things, actually it was hard trying to figure out who I was away from the bows and the arrows. And I had to, I guess, look after myself really, really well, and try and re-figure out what that new purpose was, what that new passion was. And that was really tough. But I struggled in terms of, it was difficult. There was a lot of emotional turmoil going on, but throughout the whole thing, I think because I'd learned all these strategies as an athlete and I was looking after myself, it kind of made it, I suppose, easier than if I hadn't had those tools.
Oh, that's a very interesting, really time that you said that you've managed to bounce back really from that crisis. But must have been such a overnight kind of such a sudden loss, about what you're doing. And in a way, part of your life is kind of wow. I have to stop it. And here's an interesting one here, because I know it's been very difficult for you to bounce back, but it's easier through the strategy you learn. Would you think would have been perhaps easier if you had other hobbies or other areas where you were passionate about as well? So not just the bows and arrows, but you perhaps were able to maybe have other sport or other activities already on the, concurrently. Do you think that could have made it easier transition or easier to bounce back?
Difficult question, because I suppose you don't know what you don't know, and I've only got my experience to rely on. But what I think I would have found easier is if I'd have prepared for life after sport. And that's something that I'm really passionate about now. My biggest regret from my sporting career is that I didn't do more to prepare myself for what happens next.
Yeah.
My sport was one, I in London 2012, I was 24 years old. I think one of my teammates was 64. So, I thought that I could have a really long career in this, and my passion hadn't, it was still going strong. So I thought, as long as I keep enjoying it, as long as I keep doing well, there's no reason why I can't continue. So, it was really, really hard in terms of knowing what to do next. I think if I'd have explored those other passions, not necessarily had another hobby or something like that, but I think if I'd have thought about and put plans in place for what comes next. Whilst I was training, I did get a degree. I studied law at university. I decided that law was not the career for me, but I didn't do anything else to progress that career. So, if I'd have gone out and maybe done a bit of work experience, figured out what I like doing, and got some of that experience under my belt, I certainly think that would have been really helpful.
No, thank you for sharing that, because that's the kind of guidance we can give others to better prepare. That's all. While you're in the peak of your strength and while you're doing well and successful, prepare for the future, design it, visualize it, and take action while you're going strong in that sense. We have another great, really, question here from Anya Maristone, and I wanted to how has your journey in the past helped you to deal with the difficulties and restrictions we all face today? And I believe that you have built some resilience facing restrictions on a personal level and daily basis. What has helped you, and what could help others facing many of those personal restrictions?
Oh, super question. So yeah, and actually I have faced a lot of challenges, but I believe we all have. And I use the challenges that I've faced in the past to actually help me today. So what I do is I look at those challenges, I look at how I dealt with it, And then I asked myself, like, what can I do today? What did I learn from that I can apply to this situation? So, you know, for example, the one that I just gave with the classification and coming out of sport, that taught me so many things. You know, for to start with, to go through something like that, it you know, and come out on the other side. That there's a lot of strength to do that. So you know, I've got that, and I can apply that to the situation we're in now. I had the most wonderful support team. You know, when stuff like that happens, you really find out who your friends are. And, you know, I had a most amazing support team that were there for me and still are today, which is brilliant, you know, that they're still supporting me in this current situation. And I learned that I've got all the resources and tools I need to adapt to different situations. So what I tend to do is, you know, whenever we face a new challenge, I think it's really important to look back at the ones we've already tackled and go, actually, I learned all this. I can, you know, tweak and change it a little bit, but apply similar principles to the challenge I'm facing today.
Amazing. One final question here. I wanted to, before we kind of go into wrap it up on the kind of final part of the podcast, is Nani, how you achieved a lot? How do you set goals so you make sure you follow through? You know, can you share some success strategies and processes of how do you set your goals that you can achieve?
Of course, yes. So I like to use quite a robust process. Well, I ask myself 5 different questions. But for me, when I'm looking at a goal setting model and what I want out of a goal setting model is that I want something that gives me direction, and I want something that I can adapt, because it doesn't matter how many plans you set in place, plans always change. You know, you might hit it a lot quicker. Something might throw up like what we're facing today, and we've got to be able to adapt that plan. So for me, the first 2 questions that I ask myself are really, really integral to that. So I ask myself, who am I? Who do I want to become? And setting like that identity-based goal, I think is very, very important. So, like, you know, as an athlete, who did I want to become? I wanted to be the best in the world. That's who I wanted to be, and that really, I guess, set that intention. The second bit focuses on motivation, which is all about the why. Why do I want to do this? And once you've got that motivation, that's really helpful, because that helps you persevere through all the tough times, and you can always tap back into that when you're really struggling. Then I ask myself the what. What is it I actually want to achieve? What does that goal look like? How will I know what it is when I've achieved it? Then I look at where I am now. So, like, what am I doing at this minute? How far am I away from that goal? And then I just break it down into the process. So how am I going to get from where I am now to what I want to achieve? And that really focuses on all the tiny actions. So it's really splitting it down into sort of minuscule actions in lots of different areas that I can actually work on today and tomorrow and the next week to help me actually get to that goal.
Oh, this is so valuable. Thank you for kind of sharing this, and thank you, Sir, for such a great question, because you're right. Often we need to find out who we are, and that gives us confidence. But I love what you said. You can be anyone you want to be, as long as the vision you have and why you want to do it is strong enough for you to take you through the tough times and do it. Finally, Danielle, what is your vision for really better world? What is your kind of short-term, really kind of, or even small scale, large scale, and more midterm as well? What do you see?
Sorry, was that about like the world in general, or for me, my vision? Sorry,
your vision, your personal vision.
My vision. Yeah. Do you know what? It's so tough, isn't it, at the minute? Because I think goals have changed a lot. But for me, like on a day-to-day basis, it's about trying to make a difference, trying to help other people. I do have sort of goals in terms of my writing, my speaking. I'd like to do some more like international stuff and really grow that side of things. But I don't ever want to leave that vision behind of actually trying to make a difference, even if it's to one person. So, I think it's great looking ahead, but really sort of understanding that that's where I'm coming from.
Amazing. And, in your vision, in your mind, what can we do to spread the care culture?
I think, it's about understanding the benefits, really. As I explained, sport wasn't always the kindest place. And I've found that actually I've get so much more out of myself in a really kind, inclusive culture. And I think really understanding that kindness and care is a strength. Where, I think it was really weird, isn't it? Like when you're a kid, you're always taught, be kind, be kind, be kind. And it's like one of the most important things. And then somewhere along the line that disappears and it's all about determination and ambition and focus. Of course, they're very, very important, but that kindness just gets left behind. And I think if we can bring it in and people can use it and we get to see it on more of a daily basis and lead by example from that, I think it really spreads it around for everybody and hopefully more people follow suit.
I could not resist and show this question. It was such a great one here from Maria here. And thank you for this question, Maria. Who are your role models and where do you find mentorship and advice?
Oh, super question. So yeah, in terms of role models, there's so many role models out there. And I've already mentioned my parents who are fantastic role models. At the minute, I sort of, I've really been enjoying doing research into various role models. And one of my favorite ones at the minute is Yusra Mardini, the Syrian refugee, the swimmer. And I just think she's got an amazing story, and the persistence and resilience she shows is just incredible. And, it's just for me, those stories say so much and capture so much. And I just think they're so important to share and to listen and to learn from. So I love hearing other people's stories from the inspiration and the learning point of view. But in terms of that mentorship, again, really, really important. And you can learn so much from so many different people. And I'm very lucky to have an amazing network that, we can just get together, you can talk to people. And I always find that I learn so much from so many different people in my life, which is great. And I've always got those people to tap into. So joining things like networking groups and mentor schemes are really helpful.
They say that you should have a mentor and you should have a mentee. You should have somebody that you also mentor yourself. That will help you. And you're right. You can be various different ways to find those mentors, and you can link them with, I guess, what you want to achieve. If you want to specifically, as like what you mentioned earlier about the strategy, I love all the valuable, really advices you shared, Danielle, about when you have a goal, look at your team and find out who want to be on your team or who want to be your mentor. And that can depend on what you want to achieve as well. So thank you so much for obviously sharing those amazing insights. Any final words, Danielle, for everyone who is listening to us and will listen to this?
Just for me, it's really about understanding your passion, understanding what you care about. And I think that we've all got that capacity to achieve great things. We've all got the capacity to make a difference. And it's understanding what it is you want to do, and don't be afraid to go out there and do it. I think sometimes we can get bogged down with the doubts and that prevents us from taking action. But I just think if you take that tiny step forward, it really starts to snowball into amazing things.
Someone said to me, how do you, everybody has doubts. And even you as an Olympic gold medalist, you had doubts. And someone said to me, how do you manage or defeat the doubts? is by rapid action and success.
Yeah. Yeah.
Has that worked for you?
Yeah, I think, sometimes you've just got to jump out of the comfort zone, and, if it goes well, brilliantly. Even if it doesn't go well, you still learn something from it. So yeah, I do think that does work, because you can always draw out the positives. So, there's always success from that. But for sure, I sometimes think you do have to think about stuff, but equally you've got to take that action in order to get the results you're looking for.
Amazing. Daniele, I really sincerely thank you for sharing all these valuable insights, for the time you spent. Thank you for being a giver and a leader who cares.
Well, thank you. It's been great to be here.
Have an amazing day. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Bye.